God. All right, imagine with me for a moment. You are at the DMV. You have been here for an hour already. Despite your appointment, you made an appointment. And you are very, very late for a meeting. The person in line in front of you is screaming into his phone. The air conditioning is broken, and you are dripping in sweat, and you finally get to the front of the line, and the person behind the desk cheerfully informs you that you have forgotten a crucial document, and will have to start the process over. Now, you've been under a lot of pressure lately, and this latest infringement on your peace of mind is just the last straw for you. Your heart rate quickens, your brain starts spinning, your breath catches in your throat, and then, the well-intentioned DMV clerk tells you dismissively, "Now, ma'am, just calm down." Yeah, it seems you're like me, and that these words, no matter what the good intentions they are spoken with, have the exact opposite effect that they are intended to have. For me, at least, being told to calm down when I'm panicking is the equivalent of throwing gasoline on flames. The implication is insulting and infuriating. That calming my panic is a matter of choice, and I am just not trying hard enough. How kind and helpful of this person to point out the obvious course of action here. Calm down! What did you think of that? Okay, cool, I'll get right on that. Easier said than done, right? Taken at face value, this gospel reading describes what we wish would happen when we find ourselves in the throes of a storm of anxiety, or at least what condescending people who tell us to just calm down clearly think should be able to happen. An instant and magical easing of our intense emotions. While the disciples are crossing the Sea of Galilee by boat, a windstorm, perhaps like the one we had last night, takes them by surprise and threatens to overturn their vessel. And with a mere turn of phrase, Jesus is able to tame both the raging elements and the disciples' growing panic, clearly asserting dominance over chaos and danger. Jesus effectively tells the storm, "Calm down," and it does, which truly is a miracle. I cannot even begin to count the number of times I have prayed for a miracle like this to happen. For Jesus, in an instant, to take away some stormy emotion or situation I'm in the midst of, be it anxiety or anger or grief. Perhaps you have too. The prayer to just be able to calm down simply because we wish it were so. But in the storms of my own life, I have more often encountered a Jesus who appears to be asleep at the wheel, rather than an all-powerful manipulator of the elements. A Jesus who does not intervene in the way I want, who does not absolve me of the difficult but necessary work of emotional regulation. Like the disciples, I have often prayed something along the lines of, "Don't you care that I'm perishing here?" The Jesus we meet in today's gospel is a bit hard to comprehend. Blissfully oblivious one moment, regal and omnipotent the next. This passage begs a question that, despite millennia of debate, remains at best a mystery. If God can control the forces of chaos and intervene against life's storms, then why doesn't God do it more often? Ultimately, I don't know the answer either. But what I do know is what the text hints at, but doesn't come right out and say, that regardless of what God does or doesn't do when we are tempested by life, God is always right there in the boat with us. Perhaps not intervening in the way we might wish for, magicking away our fear and anxiety, but God is always present. Asleep? Maybe. Or maybe just waiting for us to reach out. It is human nature to want to escape discomfort and pain. If we take the stormy Sea of Galilee as a metaphor for our own tumultuous emotions and experiences, then it is We forget that God is not far from our suffering, but right there with us. Today, we are pausing to acknowledge a major storm that has had our society in its grip for too long, the storm of violence, particularly gun violence. We're talking about it in chapter 12. I think it's safe to say that if there were an easy solution here, we would have found it and implemented it already. Instead, we as a society continue to be rocked by storms of violent rhetoric, dead-end debates, and overwhelming grief at the mounting number of lives that have been ended too soon because of firearms. Here in this community, we are coming up on the 2-year anniversary of the 4th of July shooting in Highland Park, where 7 people were killed and 48 were injured just 13 miles to the south of us, altogether too close for comfort. On that awful day, I was driving to Indiana Dunes National Park, ducking in and out of cell service, not looking at my phone. And when I finally pulled into the parking lot and checked, my phone was exploding with messages. And I will never, ever forget that icy fist of horror that gripped me, wondering first and foremost if any of you had chosen that particular parade to spectate, wondering how many funerals I might need to do, wondering how our friends at Trinity Highland Park had fared, and feeling completely and utterly helpless. In that moment, there was nothing to do but pray, calling upon Christ to draw us out of peril and see us safely to the shore. There are many concrete actions that can be taken to address the epidemic of violence in our society, and we will hear about some of them in the forum after today's service. But today, I also want to address the spiritual dimension of relentless violence, the collective trauma that has all of us in its grip as we move through the world, wondering more or less actively whether today is a day that we will be shot at the grocery store, at the movies, at a parade. For too many of us, it feels like we are in that dinky little boat on the Sea of Galilee, being tossed about by a storm, ready to be thrown overboard at a moment's notice. I will say it again. There are no easy answers. But what if? What if in those moments where it feels like all is lost, we could attend to the radical simplicity of God's presence with us in our moments of need? What if we could trust that God is with us no matter how stormy life gets? What happens if we shift our prayer in moments of desperation from, "Oh my God, please make this moment of unpleasantness go away," to, "God, be with me in this"? Because the truth is, the presence of another has the power to carry us through the storm. In our most tempestuous moments, we are seen, we are loved, and we are held by God's grace. And God's presence with us may not be what we expect, but we are never, ever abandoned. So in whatever storms rage within us or without, may we know the unassuming yet unwavering power of Christ with us. May we feel His presence in our souls and in our bodies, and may it give us strength and courage to withstand the tempest